Peace, Israel, and Yah bless. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. This is part 2 of Showtime. Once again, the title of this segment / lesson is Showtime, and this is part 2. I have done part 1 earlier today, but it took so long to upload that the Sabbath is actually over, and now that it's been uploaded, I'm able to go ahead and do this part 2. And the goal is to get it out to you today. Once again, peace and Yah bless. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. We are to walk the straight and narrow way of the Most High's commandments. We are not to turn to the left or to the right. We're to walk the straight and narrow way at all times. All right, brace yourselves for part 2. Brace yourselves, tighten up your jaws, do not turn to the left or to the right, or you will get hit in the mouth. We are to walk the straight and narrow way of the Most High's commandments. We're not to deviate to the left hand or to the right hand. We are to walk the straight and narrow way. Part 2, Showtime. We've seen the Russians did a little showing. And with these European nations, what's going to happen is you're going to see it's like a bunch of crooks. You get them in the room, and all of a sudden, Crook A is telling on Crook B, and Crook B is telling on Crook C. In other words, yeah, you did such and such, but he did this. You're saying I did this, you did that. So you're going to see the Russians going to come forth. The Israelis going to come forth. The different factions of Europe that's enslaved and murdered our people are going to come forth with all types of revelations, with all types of just divulging information on all the wickedness that they have done. Because think of it, we are the children of Israel. We have wronged the Most High. We have done violence to his law. And one way for us to be redeemed and for us to be returned back onto him is by turning back onto his law, statutes, judgments, and precepts. Turning back from wickedness back onto his righteousness. And in so doing, confessing our faults and all the errors that we have made, to acknowledge them and to do them no more, and hence walk forth in a new path, in a new direction, not wickedness, but the direction of righteousness. But before we can do that, we have to purge our heart of that wickedness. We must first admit that that was incorrect, that it was wrong. We must acknowledge our faults. We must offer the calves of our lips to the Most High and acknowledge what we have done. The Most High knows what we have done. We're not telling him anything that he doesn't know. But it is for us to know that we may admit our faults, that we have been in error, that we have done violence to his law. So if we have to turn to him with our whole heart and our whole soul and admit our faults on what we have done that was not in accordance to his instructions, the heathen has to do the same thing. They have to come forth if they decide to turn back and admit all the things that they have done to us. So we're going to get all the information, all the backdoor dirt. They're going to bring it forward. They have to. It's the only way that they're going to save themselves. The only way that we're going to save ourselves, we have got to confess with the calves of our lips. We have to admit all the wrongs that we have done. Their case is no different. We have been punished for what we have done. They will also be punished for what they have done. But those of us that are of a contrite spirit will be spared, but we will not go altogether unpunished. All right, so let's deal with the United Nations, the UN. An organization formed by a bunch of Europeans. These are a bunch of white dudes who have murdered and slaughtered the children of Israel all over the earth, whose ways are unrighteous from top to bottom. You don't have to believe what I've just said. You can just take their history, and you take their history and their actions and their laws and their religions and put it up against the Torah, the instructions that the children of Israel were given, and see how much of that these European Christian nations follow. And the answer to that is none. They walk in direct opposition to Torah. After World War II, the heathen, that is just a term for nations other than Israel. The heathen, after so much mass murdering and killing, they decided, you know what? We have outdone ourselves. We've done so much killing and slaughtering of our fellow man, their fellow Europeans, because that's who they were killing. They said, you know what? We're going to come up with a governing body to ensure that genocidal acts and such mass murder does not occur again in the earth. Well, first of all, it's hypocrisy upon its own face. First of all, the person that's doing the murdering is the man that's trying to stop the murdering. The man that's causing the wars and making and manufacturing the weapons of war is the man that's trying to say, hey, we're doing too much killing. Well, if you feel you're doing so much killing, why do you have all these large armies? If you feel that you're doing so much killing, why are you making and manufacturing all these weapons of war? You see, they are hypocritical. They are unrighteous and evil in all of their ways. They have formed this governing body, formerly known as the League of Nations, that became the UN. It's a bunch of white dudes. Pull a couple of other people in the mix to kind of dress it up. They always have a habit of putting a couple of Israelites in the mix, a couple of nations in there, make it look like, well, you know, we're not all white. We've got a couple of non-white members, though they have absolutely no power and no decision making in the process of what's being doled out to the nations. So they have this governing body. Now keep in mind, if you are of the house of Israel, you're to understand a few things. The Most High chose us to be his people, specifically above all the other families, nations of the earth. We were to show forth his praise. We were to bring forth his righteousness to the nations. Our fault, our error was that the Most High stated that we are to be holy because he is holy. We are his people, so we are supposed to be holy. We didn't want that. We wanted to be like the unholy, the unrighteous, and the wicked nations of the earth. So the UN is a governing body of nations that does not include the children of Israel in it. So therefore, nothing that the UN does has any righteousness in it, because there is but one righteous family on this whole entire earth. There's only one family that was given righteousness on this whole entire earth, and that is the children of Israel. Our job is to bring forth the Most High's righteousness to the nations. If you ever hear, oh, the Israelites, not the Israelis, the Israelites are God's chosen people, your next question should always be, chosen to do what? We're chosen to take his righteousness and bring it forth to the nations. In other words, we're the people to teach you morally what's right and what's wrong in the sight of the Creator. That's our job. But we have relinquished that post. Hence, there's wickedness rampant throughout the earth because the men of Israel has failed to stand up in their lot and do their job. They wanted to be like the other nations. So here we are in the midst of these other nations, getting kicked in the teeth every day, getting our sons slaughtered, our daughters too. They have no regard for our elderly. They will kill us if we're 99 years old, and they will kill our 9-year-olds, and they will kill our babies. I'm talking fresh out the womb. No regard for your life. So these United Nations, governing body of Europeans, sprinkle a couple of non-European nations in there that has absolutely no power. Every decision made by the UN is made by a white man. Is made by a European. More often than not, it will be a Christian. I'm to remind the children of Israel scattered to the four corners of the earth that these Christian nations that make up this UN have murdered, slaughtered, and enslaved black people all over the earth. They are your enemies. And I mince no words when I say this. We are to understand clearly who we are dealing with. So when you see the hypocrisy and the unrighteousness of these people, you must first remember, number one, they are your enemies. Number two, they are anti-Yah. They're against God's laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts. They know not righteousness. They move in absolute lawlessness, no regard for law. Whatever law that they quote unquote make, they have 2 or 3 escape hatches in the back, specifically for them. However, when a man or a woman of Israel comes before whatever court that they have set up, we don't have those escape hatches. They're closed to us. This man is hypocritical in all of his ways, and it is showtime. The Most High is going to show the children of Israel that we have been in error, trying to be like these other people who know not Yah. And we are calling ourselves Christians, calling ourselves after the names and walking after the manners of the most evil people upon the face of this earth. They're killing your babies, poisoning your water, shooting your sons, locking them up, making laws against them, flooding your cities if they're not bombing them. That's what they have done to us. That is their track record against our people. And in spite of the violence they have done towards our people, towards our families, somehow the house of Israel is enamored with them, in love with them, continue to try to be like them, when the Most High made it plain that we are a separate people, period, and that we were not to join hands with the heathen, period, and we were not to be like them, and it will not be allowed. So to hold on to these falsehoods of the heathen, that someone died for you and the Most High is 3 and all this other nonsense, it's to your detriment. It's to your own destruction. You see clearly what is going on with these Israelis and this UN. I've told you several weeks ago that they would find these Israelis guilty, and that these Israelis will totally disregard whatever the UN has said. Why? These are a bunch of white dudes. And so therefore, they do not hold each other guilty. They don't hold each other accountable. They're all rolling in the sea of wickedness. All of them. And so when you come before this United Nations, these unrighteous nations, what you're going to get is nothing but a bunch of unrighteousness, because they don't know what righteousness is. And the reason why they don't know what it is because we have not stood up and taught it to them. They don't know what that is till we teach them. Go read the book of Isaiah, you will see clearly, Isaiah chapter 2, that the law has to go forth from Zion. We have got to teach these nations. That's our job. They don't know what righteousness is. That doesn't make them blameless. So it's not that we can say, oh, well, he doesn't know what righteousness is, therefore that's why he's wicked, and therefore we can actually excuse his wicked behavior. Oh, no, that doesn't work that way. They will be punished. Now, speaking of punishment, you see that the people of South Africa, black people, who have been kicked in the teeth by white people, Christians, they have brought forth all these charges against these Israelis, are nothing but a bunch of murderers and liars and land thieves. These are characteristics of the European wherever he has gone. So as we see this, South Africa has brought all of these charges against them. No other white nation was going to do this. Why? Because they're all in cahoots together. They're all parties to wickedness. They're all parties to hypocrisy, and all parties to evil and lies and murder. They can't accuse these Israelis, they can't accuse these Israelis of something that they're already doing. There's nothing that the Israelis are doing to the Palestinians that the government of America has not done to black people here, that the government of Spain has not done to black people, that the government of Germany has not done to black people, that the government of England has not done to black people, that the government of Italy has not done to black people. Name all of these quote unquote white Christian European nations. There's nothing, and I repeat, absolutely nothing, that these Israelis are doing to these Palestinians that these white European Christian evangelical nations have not done to black people in the lands where we are. So they could not bring charges against them. Because heck, we doing the same thing. But a black nation can do it. And that's why you see the European is very careful when they pick us. That's why I've always told you in times past, watch any man that's of the house of Israel that is sitting at the table of his enemies. I don't care if it's a military general. I don't care if it's a CEO of one of these corporations. If he is sitting at the table of his enemies, they have carefully vetted that man or that woman. They know that that individual will not poison the food. That's the literal food and the ideology and the plan of that group as a collective. They have been carefully vetted. These individuals that are sitting in the midst of their enemies, skinning and grinning, have been vetted. They will not poison the food. They're enemies unto themselves. They're enemies unto their own people. And they're enemies unto Yah. And we are to understand all of this. There's a woman, I don't know what her name is, that's sitting on the UN representing the United States. An Israelite woman, from what it appears to be, and she seems to have no shame in holding that position. Sitting there fighting on the behalf of our enemies. The same things that's being done to these Palestinians are the same things that's been done to her own people in this nation that she sits up there and defends. And she ought to be ashamed of herself. You see, this place is so full of wickedness, it has to be destroyed. Has to be. For none of the other European nations have any trust in this place. It's so bad that the European man here knows that he has to pick an Israelite to go represent him in certain places, i.e. they have used Colin Powell in times past to present the case to go in and kill Saddam and to invade Iraq. Because the other Europeans don't trust the Europeans here. The Most High is causing a wedge to be driven in the midst of them. However, he caused a wedge to be driven through and caused their fire in the children of Israel, split us up. So he's going to split up their little conglomerate. He's going to split that up too. He's going to form a wedge in the midst of them. So the regular European white dudes don't trust the American white man. So he has to send a black person up there, and the Europeans are going to think, well, there's no way that this black person, with all the history of the white man and the European has done to the black man in America, there's no black man in America stupid enough to come up here and represent this nation and tell a lie and be unrighteous in his delivery. There is no such Israelite that's stupid. That's what the Europeans are thinking. But the shocker is, oh yes, there is. And so the last bit of hope when the other nations looked to America, realizing all of his wickedness and figuring, you know what, as wicked as America is, there's some bit of hope in it in the quote unquote black people. So the white people here, knowing that there's no trust in them, take a black person and push him up front to represent the nation. That the other nations may be at ease, thinking there's no way this black person who have endured all this brutality and enslavement from these white people would ever come up here and bat on the behalf of white people. But yet Colin Powell did it and told a lie. And so now all of America has lost face. White ones and the quote unquote black ones who are the Israelites that's sitting here. You can't trust them. You cannot trust them. So when you see them sitting in these high positions and they look like you and they're rocking with their enemies, understand this man has already destroyed himself. For there's no way that you understand the history of what these people have done to us as a collective. Our elderly, as well as our youth, our women, our people as a whole, our families as a whole. And you stand out in front and defend the wicked and speak on the behalf of the wicked, you become destroyed. And so therefore they're finding any of us that they can find to stick us up front, to give them some validity. And many of us are stupid enough to do it. South Africa, when given an opportunity, you see, South Africa is not serious about no kind of punishment. And many of our people are celebrating the fact that South Africa has brought this case forward against these Israelis, against these Jews, against these people that have no connection to that land, period, and will not be allowed to stay there. People are celebrating this and think it's a good thing. And it is a good thing. But when we look at it in its entirety, the same European that's bombing these Arabs, the same European that's bombing these Muslims in Gaza, are the same set of Europeans that murdered and slaughtered the South African. These are the same families of people. French, the Dutch, the Spanish, the English, the Italians, these are the same. These are all Christian nations that's doing this. It's what they do. It's what they know. Violence is what they know. War is what they know. They can't ever know peace, because in order for you to know peace, you have to know the Most High's law and walk in it. And they've never done that. So they've never known peace. So when South Africa brought this case to the ICJ, International Court of Justice, you have a court that's made up by white people for white people. Now keep in mind, when these Europeans, the Italians, went into Ethiopia and was murdering and slaughtering Ethiopians, the UN ain't said nothing. League of Nations ain't say, hey, we got nothing to say. We are white people. We made these laws. And if a white nation decided they want to go kill some black people, we got nothing to say. So this is part of the hypocrisy. As long as these white dudes that made these rules and this governing body, as long as they're killing non-white people, there's nothing to see here. And I want you all to see their hypocrisy. It's showtime. The Most High is going to expose them inside and out, going to destroy them from the inside out. All of their wickedness is going to be brought before your face. That way you can make a decision. Is this the people you want to stand up and represent? Is this the man you want to hold on to when judgment arrives? Is that what you want? You're going to be holding on to a butt-naked man, stinking, dead and stinking. Most High's going to kill him. This is what you have to understand. Now back to this South African situation. There came a time when the Most High have heard the cries of the South African and put the gavel within the hands of the black man of South Africa and said, okay, all these things have been done. All these wrongs have been done unto you and your children, and your land have been stolen, and you have been murdered, and you've been lied to, etc., etc., etc. Now the gavel is within your hand to dole out righteous justice and judgment to these Europeans, these Afrikaners that have murdered and slaughtered your people. Guess what the South African did? They said, you know what? Yeah, we're going to settle for this peace and reconciliation. We're going to hug and kiss you, and we're not going to punish you for what you have done. And that's why the white South African, the Afrikaner, though they're the minority in that land, they have the boot on the neck of the South African. So the South African, he ain't about no justice. This is all a show. Because when the gavel was placed in his hand to punish those whites that have murdered and slaughtered them and stole their land, they decided to do absolutely nothing. Many of them should have gone to the gallows. Many of them should have been expelled, and all the lands that they have taken from those black people in South Africa should have been returned back to the black South Africans, and all of those Europeans should have been kicked out of that land. However, the black South African don't have the guts because he's afraid. He's afraid of what the other white nations were going to do to him had he punished that white man for all the infractions that he have done towards the black people of South Africa. They're scared. Kenyatta in Kenya did the same thing. When he was given the opportunity after their independence to punish all those whites for what they have done to the people of Kenya, he did absolutely nothing to them. Did not confiscate any lands. No one went to jail and no one got hung. You see, once the Most High put his spirit back upon us, we will have no fear of our enemies. We will have no fear of unrighteous people. Why are we walking around, if we are in any bit of righteousness, scared of an unrighteous man? We know that the Most High is not with the unrighteous man. So if we're walking in wickedness, if we're walking in righteousness, why are we afraid of wickedness? However, if you're wicked too, then you've got no protection. And so therefore the children of Israel don't have the intestinal fortitude to stand up and point into the face of the evil man and dress him down and let him know what his errors are, because we're not afraid of you. And that is the breastplate of righteousness and the helmet of salvation that we have put on. That's our armor. To where we're not afraid of no unrighteous man. And we're going to tell you exactly what you've done, and we're going to stick that punishment to you. There is no, oh, we're going to hug you and let's have some peace and reconciliation. No. Kill my child, I want yours dead. That's how it's going to be. Period. An eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth. And that's how this goes. This, oh, you kill my son and I'm going to meet you in the back and hug you and tell you I forgive you and take a check is disgraceful behavior. It's unacceptable behavior. And we're going to start standing up as a people. And the only way we're going to stand up, raising ourselves up from the dust, Ezekiel chapter 37, is when we take a hold of this righteousness. Then we're going to stop being scared of these people that's been murdering us. We're going to stop not wanting to say nothing. We're going to stop playing along with them and going along with them. It's amazing to me that a man of Israel in America or anywhere on this earth can see his enemies murder his son. And then that man is such a coward that he's going to say, I forgive you and my family forgive you, and we're not going to do anything to you. Now, where is that in the Torah? Where is that in any of our records that you can murder one of us in cold blood, in total unrighteousness, and we just let you go? Where is that at? It doesn't exist. But this is the spirit of cowardice that was placed upon our people when we were scattered. Man kick you in the teeth, you don't want to do anything about it. But the thing is about this is that you have no problems fighting your brother. When he looks at you wrong or says the wrong thing to you, you're quick to pick up arms against him, whether it be the fist, it be the knife or the gun. Against your own people, when he looks at you wrong or says something out of the way. But when your own flesh and blood, your next generation, your seed is killed by your enemies, you want to talk peace. You want to have peace and reconciliation. And you want to talk about some forgiveness. And you want to have some conference where we all need to get along. Against your enemies. Now, if that isn't thinking backwards, I don't know what is. And this is the problem with our people. So South Africa is not serious about this. They brought this forth, but what's going to be done? The decision is non-binding, meaning, hey, we're white and we say so, and this ain't binding. We ain't gonna do it. And if the other nations say, well, you are gonna do it, the next thing the European is gonna say, well, make me. And there's no might in our hand by which we can make them do anything. This man makes his own rules and breaks his own rules. He who has the gold makes the rules. And if he's going to make them, he feels he has the right to break them. And that's the display of hypocrisy that we have seen throughout the nations in all the places where the European Christian has ruled. We have seen inequity. We have seen injustice. We have seen unrighteousness. We have seen absolute opposition to law, to Torah, and to the Most High Yah. And if I'm ever lying in any of these videos, put it down there, hey man, you're lying, that's not true. But we can go through the archives and we can show you where this man is unrighteous in every last one of his ways, and that he has a track record of scattering and murdering the children of Israel in all the lands that he has dragged us to. South Africa is serious about this, because when they were given the gavel to give out justice, they didn't. And the Most High made it plain. Once a man turns his eye from righteous judgment and will not dole out the proper penalty for infractions, then the Most High turns his face against that man and his house. So when the South African was given an opportunity to correct the wrongs and to punish the wrongdoers, they fumbled the ball. And so therefore the white Afrikaner that's in South Africa, that's a fraction of the population that controls 90% of everything, he deserves to be there. He deserves to be there. And the Most High gonna keep him there for the simple fact that when you turn a blind eye to rendering righteous judgment and justice, then the Most High turns his face against you. So you're not serious about any righteousness. Then again, how could you be? You don't walk in the law. Let's turn to Haiti. There's a situation going on in Haiti where upheaval. The place has been a mess, and Haiti has been this way for many centuries. We know what the French has done to them. Same thing the French has done to all the West African nations. These are our colonizers. However, you know it's bad when an African will flee Africa and go into the arms, into the headquarters of his enemies in order to find a better way of life. That's how bad it is. People are promoting a lot of videos about going to Africa. Why are many Africans fleeing Africa to get into these European nations? These Africans know what these Europeans have done to black people. But yet they feel as though it's better for me to go in the midst of white people than hang out in the midst of my own black people, no matter how poor we are. We're going to go over here and take our chances with the European, thinking somehow that's better. It's bad on both sides of the water. For the Africans can't trust each other. How could they? They don't walk in the law. And that's why they continue to have problems. They can't trust each other. Their leaders are corrupt. They have no responsibility to their own people. And the ones that try, they get killed. And more often than not, they're killed by their own people. So you're seeing a bunch of people in the Congo, and this has been going on for a very long time. Belgium and France did a number in the Congo. Leopold killed well over 20 million Africans. But Leopold doesn't make the list as far as the most evil men that's ever walked the face of the earth. The people that own the media wants us to believe that Hitler is the most evil person that's ever been on the face of the earth. But Leopold killed a bunch of black people, so therefore we don't put him on the list. So when we talk about atrocities, we are the victims of those in vast numbers and over a span of centuries. So this Congo situation, you have Africans who are picking up all types of arms. Where are they getting it from? They certainly don't manufacture it. They're coming from these European nations. And somehow the African is going to have to be smart enough to understand what's happening with him. And he's going to have to find ways to make peace with his own brother. That's not happening unless he turns to the law also. So you're going to have that problem in Congo. You're going to have these problems in Haiti. Haiti is the same thing. Back in the 90s, when I was an infantryman in the United States Marine Corps, I was deployed to Cuba the sum of 5 times. because of the migrant situation. The Cubans, as well as the Haitians, were coming over onto Guantanamo Bay by the thousands. We had set up camps there on Guantanamo Bay. We fed them and we safeguarded them, watched over them, protected them while they were there. Now, the Cubans, the white ones, were sent to Miami. All the black ones, the Israelites, they were sent back to Port-au-Prince. And I know this for a fact because I was on the Coast Guard cutters carrying them back to Port-au-Prince. Now, on this Coast Guard cutter, the Marine Corps, back in the times when I was in the Marine Corps, it might have been 15 to 19% of Israelites in the Marine Corps. So there weren't many of us. So here I am. I'm a young man. I got out of the Marine Corps, I was 22. So it was before I became 22 years old. I'm very young. And we've got all these guns and weapons on us. And we're on this Coast Guard cutter taking Haitians back to Port-au-Prince. And I can see just the despair on the faces of the people. There was this man with his family who beckoned on to me to help him. This is all on this Coast Guard cutter. And the look of this hopelessness in his face and in the face of his wife and his children, because I was the only one in the immediate vicinity that looked like him. And so he tried to beckon on to me, but I don't speak French. But he didn't have to speak English or any other language for me to understand what he was conveying to me. But I was in a powerless position. I could not help him. However, I saw firsthand how this nation handles those who are seeking asylum based on their race. The white ones went to Cuba. The black ones went back to Port-au-Prince. I saw it with my own eyes. I was part of it. So Haiti is going through what it's going through because the European powers are putting economical and political pressures on them. And the guns, they're not making guns and bullets in Port-au-Prince. These guns and these bullets are coming from elsewhere. And these warlords or gang leaders or whomever, they're being funded by foreign governments. More often than not, the Christian foreign governments. Haiti has been plundered. However, none of this would happen to our people if we did not have traitors in the midst of us that will hold hands and make covenants with our oppressors. So this is showtime. The Most High is going to show the children of Israel exactly who in the midst of us are our traitors, our backstabbers, and our enemies. Some of our enemies, we have enemies without, we have enemies within. And before we start fighting that man in the street, we got to fight the enemy in our own house. And so we're going to weed out all these traitors. We're going to weed out all these individuals who are in love with our enemies. And it's trying to teach us not to resist against our enemies. And that for us to turn a blind eye and to let bygones be bygones. And for us to hold hands with our enemies. We're going to deal with them. They're going to be exposed. We have long known who our traitors were, and we never did anything to them. Something is going to be done to them this time around. It's showtime. It's going to be made plain who will not hearken to the Most High's law, statutes, judgments, and precepts. And if you're walking in righteousness and another man is walking in wickedness, regardless of his ethnic background, he's an enemy unto you. And so therefore, as we begin to separate ourselves in these times, because right now it's time to grab a hold of righteousness. It's wartime. Put on that helmet of salvation and that breastplate of righteousness. You're going to need that. These European nations are bent on going to war with their fellow European man, the Russians. The Russians go to war, so will the Arabs go to war. So will the Asians go to war. The Most High is bringing them together. And I hope you can see this. The showdown in the Valley of Jehoshaphat is on the way. And there's not one Israelite, not one black person on the planet that can stop these white men from pressing that button and sending these ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missiles. Ain't no might in your hand to stop this man from doing that. None. So since there is no might in our hand to stop these Europeans from destroying themselves and destroying us and destroying the entire earth, there's but one person that's going to stop them. And that's the Most High. We can't stop him. The power is not within our hand. But this man thinks he is God and more powerful than God. And some of us, we're so stupid. We actually think he's God because he provides us for the want of all things. In our minds, he is God. Because anything we want, we got to go to him. He controls everything. Like Brother Neely Fuller says, he controls all 9 areas of activity. If you've ever listened to Neely Fuller. So we have to understand where we are when dealing with these unrighteous nations. They know not Yah. That is why when you read Isaiah chapter 2, all these nations gonna have to come up to be taught the way of the Most High. What is that? His law. Why? Because they don't know it. That's why they're in such a state of lawlessness. The law will go forth from Zion. So how come you allow this man to tell you that the law is done away with? Lack of law equals lawlessness. I've said this time and time again. You should know it by now. All of these European nations are the ones that make up the UN. They're all Christian nations. They're the very people that have murdered and slaughtered us and are hypocritical in their ways. You should expect no righteous judgment. I repeat, you should expect no righteous judgment out of a bunch of unrighteous people. And the entire UN body is an unrighteous farce. And any man that walks in the Most High's laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts knows that the UN is nothing but a bunch of unrighteous nations. So, in conclusion, the Most High is going to take this America, it's going to destroy it from the inside out. The caterpillars have already showed up. A caterpillar eats you from the inside out. Migrants are coming in here a dime a dozen. The European man here is highly upset. The immigrants are taking over our nations, etc., etc. Here's what he forgets. He forgot that when he took this land, he murdered and slaughtered people to get it. They're coming in here, but they're not killing anyone in the process. That doesn't mean that they won't start killing later on. But to get in here, they haven't murdered anyone to get here. This European forgot that he has murdered and slaughtered people in order to get in this land. And I've told you before, Australia, they have murdered and slaughtered the black people in Australia. The Englishman has, and now he calls himself the Australian. He is taking the land and trying to give it out to other people, and the land doesn't even belong to him. The European man here in America, he's upset that immigrants are coming here. But this land doesn't belong to you. You have murdered and slaughtered people by which to possess the land. And once you shed innocent blood on some land that you stole, you're not going to be allowed to tread upon that land. That is why they have to continue to bring in these migrants and bring in these Europeans from all these different European nations. They have to have these agreements to where, hey man, you don't need a visa to come here. And we're going to make it as easy as possible for you to come here, obtain citizenship and benefits here, because their numbers are dying everywhere that they are. The places that they went, murdered, slaughtered people, and took the land. The Most High cursed them when they did it. Their birth rate is going to be negative. He's going to kill you off of the land. The only way the land is going to be sustained by people, you're going to have to bring in some new ones, because he's going to systematically kill you off. Who is shocked by this? This is the same thing that he did to the children of Israel. So why would he not do it to these strangers? The stranger thinks somehow he don't have to obey the law. Regardless of whether he knows the Torah or not, you still got to obey it. And once again, I've told you in times past, keep in mind that many of us are trying to hold on to the man that's been created for destruction. There's some men who are raised up to teach the Most High's laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts. There's people who are raised up to bring forth righteousness and to usher the people of the earth that seek after righteousness to walk in the way that's right. And there's men that's raised up specifically for evil, for destructive behavior. And the house of Israel has made the error of taking a hold, grabbing a hold of a man, of men, and of people that's destined for destruction. These are the destroyer. The Most High said he created the destroyer to destroy. He causes the destruction or the destroyer to make these weapons of war that he may destroy. It's judgment. But when the destroyer is done, when he's finished destroying, then the Most High removes him. So the destroyer has a place. Stop holding on to the destroyer. The evil man has a purpose. He renders judgment to evildoers. Understand that. Once we understand how this process works, then we won't be totally confused. So the Most High is going to take this America, take all of his wickedness and expose it to all the peoples of the earth. All the backdoor deals coming out. All the European nations and their dealings with our people is coming out. All the dealings of the Arabs with our people is coming out. So it's showtime. What are the things we're going to see on the big show? We're going to see these nations, these European nations, we're going to see them get into so many wars and be killed on such a grand scale, it's going to be mind-boggling. We're going to see all of their lies exposed. This nation has this slogan, "In God we trust." I've told you several videos ago, let these nations have their gods, because the God they serve is not the God of Israel. It's not our God that they're serving. They're serving something that's man-made. That's an idol that's profitable for nothing. This nation, the African nations, and if you are in these African nations, I want to say Uganda is one of them. If you are in these African nations and you are a leader of their parliament or you're within their governmental system, and this wicked place tells you that if you don't approve of an LGBT or whatever law, that they're going to withhold funding, tell them, keep all of your funding. We don't want any of it. We will walk in the Most High's law. And the Most High will strengthen you in that. So if you're walking in this Torah and you're mindful of what it states, imagine a nation that says, "In God we trust," that will push homosexuality on an entire nation, or on an entire continent of people, and tell them, if you approve a law to punish those who are walking against the laws of God, then we're not going to support you. How is that trusting in a God? What God are you trusting in? Hypocrisy. Come before the UN, the unrighteous nations, stating that you're trying to push for a ceasefire in the land of Israel. But yet you're funding these Israelis with guns, and you're funding them with money. And you're funding them, you're backing them with intelligence. But somehow you want to present to the world that you're seeking peace. You can't seek peace. You don't know what it is. War is what you do. War is all you know. You are the destroyer. You make weapons of war and you fan the flames of war. That's all you know. There is no case that we can present where any of these Christian nations have actually done acts of righteousness. You can't find it. Acts of war and brutality. That's what they know. So the Most High is going to expose them to all the people of the earth, all the families of the earth, that these families of the earth may be given an opportunity to make a decision on which way they will walk. Who are you going to side with? Are you going to side with wickedness, or are you going to side with the Most High and his righteousness? So not only will this place be exposed for its hypocrisy, it will be destroyed. In all of those evangelical Christians and Christians worldwide, it's showtime. We're going to see if this idol that you serve will deliver you. And the children of Israel that has walked after this falsehood, that is so enamored with their enemies, we're going to see if that idol that your enemy gave you, we're going to see if it saves you too, because you're going to be destroyed with them. The people that's in Israel right now called Israelis, that were taken there by their fellow Europeans. And any European on the earth could say, hey man, I'm an Israeli, and he can go back there, shoot a couple of Palestinians and take some land, take a man's house. They can do just about anything they want. Any manner of unrighteousness they can do in the land. But there's one thing that they forgot. They forgot what their latter end will be. They forgot that that land belongs to the Most High, and that the Most High's eyes are upon that land day and night. Ain't nothing going on in there that he don't know about. And there's nothing going on in that land that will go unpunished. So the earth and the inhabitants thereof, we're getting ready to see if these Israelis are God's people. That's a big showdown. We getting ready to see if these Israelis, if when they get ready to get the boot, is God going to come in and save them as his people, and they're going to be established across the earth as God's people. We're going to see if that's going to happen. And so if it doesn't happen, when the screws get put to them and it's coming, it's going to be made plain to all of these evangelical Christians, etc., etc. We're going to know if those are the people of God. And if they get run out of that land and killed, then we know clearly that they're not the people of God. And so all these European Christian angelical nations that have given them guns, etc., and money, they're going to have to ask themselves that $1 trillion question. If we done betted on these people, put them in this land, gave them guns, gave them money, and propped them up as God's people, and God has clearly shown us that these are not his people, the next question that is to be asked is, then who is God's people? And to their horror and to their terror, they will understand that God's people are the ones that they've been spitting in their faces. It's going to be God's people are going to be the ones that they hung, that them and their uncle and their daddy sat around calling us the N-word at their dinner table, that they would chase us down when we were kids trying to do us harm, that fired our daddies when they didn't do anything wrong. Their uncle, who's a judge, give one of us 10 years sentence when we only deserved 5. They're going to realize that the very people that are God's people are the very people that they have persecuted, that their family members have hated, that they themselves hate. And after they find that out, then the next thing they've got to do is they've got to go into that book and read, well, what did God say he's going to do to the enemies of his people? And that's when the terror is going to come. And that's when your enemies are going to come, because they got to make peace with the Most High Yah, and they got to make peace with you, O man of Israel, because they can't get saved until they take a hold of the skirt of the man of Israel. They're going to have to come to you. And the ones that are not walking in the law, they're coming to you to kill you. The ones that's walking in the law, they're coming to you to take a hold of you, to walk with you, that you may teach them what righteousness is. That's how that's going to go. So we're going to see what's what. We're going to see if America is as big and as bad as it says it is. Because the Most High is going to weaken this place. He's going to destroy it. Now you have to be prepared for that. When the people that has been giving you breadcrumbs to survive, you have survived, you have been in this state of misery. Some of us have gotten used to this oppression. Oppression will drive a man crazy, and it will destroy a people. We have been destroyed and we have been driven crazy. However, there's some of us Through this survival, we have become accustomed to oppression, and therefore we no longer fight it. We just seek to find a better place in it. And the only way you can find a better place in a system of evil is that you've got to be evil yourself, and you have to be willing to see evil and act like you don't. You've got to be acquiescent to the mistreatment of yourself and your own people. And many of us have become this way. So we've got some problems all throughout the earth. We're going to see exactly all these things that I've mentioned. It's showtime. The Most High is getting ready to reveal himself, show himself to his people. And when he does that, all the people of the earth will also know who his people are. So it's showtime. He's going to show us that he is one and he's not three. He's going to show us who the children of Israel really are. We're going to know who that land really belongs to. And as for this controversy over Zion, some people saying Africa, that Israel is in Africa. Yeah, it is. It's in Northeast Africa. But some folks say it's in the Congo. Some say it's down in South Africa. Some say it's in the state of Utah. All of this got to be shown to us. We're going to see if Israel is in Utah or not. It ain't. But we're going to see. He's going to make it plain. You think the church is the house of God. He's already shown you clearly in the text that it's not. But some of you don't read, don't care to read. And a lot of times when you read it, you don't believe it. So you got to show it to you. Most Negroes from Missouri, you got to show them. That's the show me state. They don't believe anything you say till you show it to them. And so the Most High will have to make a believer out of many of us. And a lot of us, when we do see it, we're not going to live to tell about it because you're going to be dead. So it's showtime. We are the witness. We are to see. The Most High has to show us exactly all the things that he has spoken of in this book. We are to bear witness to it. The things that we have learned many years ago, we've learned it for a reason. It was to prepare us for the time to come. The things that we have learned in reading and studying the Most High's Torah is so we understand clearly what our errors were in times past. That as we clean up ourselves, and that's what the Most High is doing right now, he's refining us in these many nations, killing us off, killing these rebels, the one that will not adhere to law, the one that are in direct opposition to his instruction, killing them off. Can't have you in the land, you're not obeying the rules, you're going to be a problem. So he killed us off back then. And what he's doing right now, he's killing us off right now to prepare us to return back into the land again, that we may build that third temple, that the sacrifices may be put on, and that all these nations that have hated your guts gonna come up to you bowing and bending and apologizing to the Most High for what he's done to you. And then they're going to ask you to teach him his law, the very law that these jokers will look you in the face and tell you there is no law. JC died for you. Once again, look at the history of these people. You will see that they are hypocritical. They are evil. They are violent. They are anti-Yah and against his people. Period. Now, we've got the eclipse coming up here on the 8th. On the 8th of April. We know some people may keep it late in March when it comes to Passover, and some people may say the year starts late March, early April. I start off the year April 1st. I commemorate Passover on the date of the 14th. So on the 8th, you have this eclipse coming through. On the 9th, Ramadan is officially over. That's the Muslim holiday. There's no telling what happens after that. There's no telling what happens after that. The changes in that area and in this country and everywhere else on the earth can be swift, damaging, powerful, violent, and beyond one's imagination. These are the things that we can see happen here in the next 2 weeks, in the next 2 hours, in the next 2 minutes. So we are to be prepared for what can happen, because you know right now in the Israelite community, Brother Dave, if you follow us on the Israelites Assembles, Brother Dave has told us years ago, about this sign called the Tav that symbolizes 400. Now, Brother Dave made it plain, hey, I'm no prophet. I'm just telling you this is the kind of thing he came across. And I told him, I said, look, I appreciate it. Gives me some information that I did not know. I keep my eyes open. And that's what we are to do. We're to keep our eyes open for the possibility of what could happen if all of these things pertaining to this eclipse is a sign of us being delivered from these nations. We can just imagine, we can't begin to imagine what's getting ready to take place and the fear that will be upon us and upon the people of the nations, because this will be something that is out of the control of our enemies. We do not have the power or the might in our hands to stop our enemies from destroying this entire earth. They have made the weapons by which they can do it, and we don't have access to those. So the only person that's going to stop them is going to be the Most High Yah, him and him alone. And so that's who they got to fight. So that showdown is coming, and we are to step into the Most High's embassy. We're to step into that sanctuary of his, and that will be his law. That way we may find some protections therein. So the place is being uncovered for its homosexuality, for its bestiality, for its wickedness, for the laws that it has made against the children of Israel. All these nations, Spain, Portugal, France, Germany, Italy, etc., etc., etc. You can pull up the history on what they have done to our people, the violence that they have done to our people, the enslavement of our people, and all of these things. They're doing it today. There's a track record of all of this. And most of this, some of us may have forgotten, but the Most High said, he's got us engraved in the palm of his hand. We may forget, but he has not forgotten. And so therefore they all have to pay. But before they do, all of their wickedness will be exposed to all the people of the earth. And when you see their wickedness, you have to ask yourself, is this the people of God that did all this? So now we're going to find out exactly who the people of God is. Is it our people who've been scattered to the four corners of the earth and have had everything stripped from us? Or is it these Israelis? We're going to find out. Is Jerusalem in Utah? We're going to find out. Is this church that you go to that has another church directly across the street and got another one 100 yards that way and 3 more 50 yards that way, 1,000 yards that way? Is this the house of God? We're going to find out. When you pray and you make that sign of a cross and say amen and all this other madness, are you talking to the God of Israel? Or are you talking to somebody else? Do we pray with our hands clasped and we do the sign of the cross before? Or do we face Jerusalem from the lands of our captivity, lifting our hands in prayer, offering our supplication? Which way is right? All of these things are going to be made plain. But what I want you to be aware of is don't get caught flat-footed. And by that I mean, don't be the man or the woman that's on the wrong side of this. Don't be on the wrong side of this. You've been given plenty time, plenty ample time by which to get your lazy self in this book and read it. Stop uttering things that you've heard and you believe and somebody told me and all of that. You can read. And if you can't read, these videos are presented in such a manner that you can listen. Now, if a man can't hear and a man can't see, that's a problem. If you're deaf and blind, you're dumb. And so hopefully there's someone in your close vicinity that can hold your hand and guide you if you can't see and if you can't hear any of this. There's someone in the vicinity that knows the way that is right, that you may be ushered in the way that you should walk. So it's showtime, and you want to make sure that, hey, when this thing goes down, it's been going down, it's just getting worse. So We ought to know exactly which side of the line we're on. Don't be on the wrong side of this, because there will be no fence hopping and no switching up of sides. Make sure you choose the way that is right. Find out what righteousness is and do your best to walk within that thing. Peace, Israel, and Yah bless. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. We're about to be shown all the way that is right. But are your eyes prepared to see? And after you see it, will you be on the right side of this law that you may be able to tell afterwards? Because if you're on the wrong side of this, you're going to see it all right, but you won't live to tell about it because you have been stiff-necked in the whole process and refuse to adhere to the law. Therefore, you get killed. You don't want that. Once again, peace, Israel, and Yah bless. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. And peace to the stranger that will take a hold of the Most High's laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts, and will do them. This law applies to everyone, the Israelite and the non-Israelite. And everyone on the earth is going to have to adhere to this standard. Period.